Now to Chris Wallace with a round of questions on health care.
Governor Pawlenty, you admit that you muffed a question in the last debate about Governor Romney's health care plan, so I'm going to give you another chance. You've said that the president's plan and the Romney plan are so similar that you call them both Obamacare, and you also said this: I don't think you can prosecute the political case against President Obama if you are a co-conspirator. Could you please tell Governor Romney, who's two down from you, what he and President Obama have conspired to do?
Yeah, I don't want to miss that chance again, Chris. Look, Obamacare was patterned after the Mitt's plan in Massachusetts. And for Mitt or anyone else to say that there aren't substantial similarities or they're not essentially the same plan, it just is incredible. So that's why I called it Obamacare. And I think that's a fair label, and I'm happy to call it that again tonight. But that's not the only similarity between Governor Romney's record and President Obama's record. Again, if we're going to take him on, we have to contrast with him on other important issues. For example, in spending. I've got the best spending record. It took Minnesota's historic spending from highs to lows. Mitt ran up spending in his watch as governor 40+% over his 4 years. That's not going to contrast very well with the president. In the area of judicial selections, the Boston Globe said that 2 out of 3 or so of Mitt's judicial selections, judge selections, were either pro-choice, Democrat, or liberal. I appointed conservative, strict constructionists to my Supreme Court. So that we're going to have to take it to Barack Obama, and we're going to have to show contrast, not similarities.
Governor Romney, I'm going to ask you a question about health care, but I'd like to give you 30 seconds to respond to the criticism of other parts of your record.
I think I like Tim's answer at the last debate better. There's some similarities between what we did in Massachusetts and what President Obama did, but there's some big differences. And one is, I believe in the 10th Amendment of the Constitution, and that says that powers not specifically granted to the federal government are reserved by the states and the people. We put together a plan that was right for Massachusetts. The president took the power of the people and the states away from them and put in place a one-size-fits-all plan. It's bad law, it's bad constitutional law, it's bad medicine. And if I'm the president of the United States, on my first day, I'll direct the secretary of HHS to grant a waiver from Obamacare to all 50 states.
But Governor, and this is your 1-minute question, do you think the government at any level has the right to make someone buy a good or service just because they are a U.S. resident? Where do you find that authority, that mandating authority, government making an individual buy a good or service in the Constitution?
Chris, you're asking me what do we think we should do about Obamacare, and the answer is,
I'm asking you.
And the answer is I think you have to repeal Obamacare, and I will, and I'll put in place a plan that allows states to craft their own programs to make those programs
But sir,
work.
I'm asking you, where do you find that authority in the Constitution?
Let me tell you, where do I find it in the Constitution? Are you familiar with the Massachusetts Constitution? I am. And the Massachusetts Constitution allows states, for instance, to say that our kids have to go to school. It has that power. The question is that a good idea or a bad idea? And I understand different people come to different conclusions. What we did in our state was this. We said, look, we're finding people that can afford insurance, health insurance, that are going to the hospital and getting the state to pay for them. Taxpayers are picking up hundreds of millions of dollars of cost from people who are free riders. We said, you know what? We're going to insist that those people who can afford to pay for themselves do so. We believe in personal responsibility. And if the people aren't willing to do that, then they're going to help the government pay for them. That was our conclusion. The right answer for every state is to determine what's right for those states and not to impose Obamacare on the nation. That's why I'll repeal it.
Congresswoman Bachmann, you are a big believer in the 10th Amendment and the idea of granting power to the states. So let me ask you, does that make any difference whether mandatory health insurance is being imposed by a state or by the federal government?
No, I don't believe that it does. I think that the government is without authority to compel a citizen to purchase a product or service against their will, because effectively when the federal government does that, what they're doing is they are saying to the individual they are going to set the price of what that product is. If the federal government can force American citizens, or if a state can force their citizens to purchase health insurance, there is nothing that the state cannot do. This is clearly an unconstitutional action, whether it's done at the federal level or whether it's the state level. And I will not rest as the President of the United States until we repeal Obamacare. And as the nominee of the Republican Party, I also will not rest until I can also elect an additional 13 senators who agree with me, so we'll have a filibuster-proof Senate and we can actually repeal Obamacare.
Congressman Paul, you are a constitutional expert and you talk a lot about the Constitution. What do you think of this argument that the state has a constitutional right to make someone buy a good or service just because they're a resident, not because they're driving and need a driver's license, but just the fact that they are a resident?
No, the way I would understand the Constitution, the federal government can't go in and prohibit the states from doing bad things. And I would consider that a very bad thing, but you don't send in a federal police force because they're doing it and throw them into court. So they do have that leeway under our Constitution. But we have big trouble in this medical care problem, and we have drifted so far from any of our care being delivered by the marketplace. And once you get the government involved, and both parties have done it, they've developed a bit of a medical care delivery system based on corporatism. The corporations are doing quite well, whether it's Obama or under the Republicans. The drug companies do well, the insurance companies do well, the organized medicine do well, the management companies do well. The patient and the doctors suffer. There's a wedge. Every time you hit the government get in here with these regulations and have these mandates, there's a wedge driven in between the doctor and the patient. We have to get the people more control of their care, and that's why these medical savings accounts could at least introduce the notion of market delivery of medical care.
Senator Santorum, I see you running to jump in. Your thoughts about Romney Care?
First, I was the first author of medical savings accounts back in 1992 with John Kasich in the House. But this is a very important argument here. This is the 10th Amendment run amok. Michelle Bachmann says that she would go in and fight health care being imposed by states, mandatory health, but she wouldn't go in and fight marriage being imposed by the states. That would be okay. We have Ron Paul saying, oh, what the states want to do, whatever the states want to do under the 10th Amendment's fine. So if the states want to pass polygamy, that's fine. If the states want to impose sterilization, that's fine. No, our country is based on moral laws, ladies and gentlemen. There are things the states can't do. Abraham Lincoln said, the states do not have the right to do wrong. I respect the 10th Amendment, but we are a nation that has values. We are a nation that was built on a moral enterprise, and states don't have the right to tramp over those because of the 10th Amendment.